the aggressor, because what I do with my pairs, um, you can't be looking to hit sets all the time because it just doesn't happen that often. So it's a waste if you're getting in with small pairs and then just folding when you miss. So what you need to do is use them to turn them into bluffs. So if I'm in position and someone bets into me, I'll raise with any pair. I also raise if I hit a set. So you know, again, it's whether you hit or whether you miss, you're still doing the same action with your pairs. And if I'm out of position as I was there, I'm checking. If the player checks behind, then that's great. You could spike a 5, or you could be ahead, or you could bluff at it on the turn. But because he bets, he's going to bet a lot of boards with aces in that position. He doesn't necessarily need to have it. So it's just something worth considering. And although, as I keep saying, you don't need to balance your range, that is one way that you could do it, is using your small pairs as basically the cards that you bluff with. Because if you're only betting good hands don't come along that often. I've just flat called there with 2-3. It obviously plays well. It could flop a really good something really special and get paid off, but I mean, we've got something there. Because there's an ace there, I'm going to bet half the pot, because normally with an ace this player would have raised. Now, because we haven't got the nut flush draw, we're going to play this a little bit slower, but we are going to call. This is the same player, remember, who's just bet an ace high flop, and we've just took him off it, so he could be, we could have took him off a middling hand. Now I think with this one here, I think we do need to bet it. Also, I don't mind him calling because I'm quite interested to see what he has. Now, if we did have something like a pair here, I'd be quite tempted to call, but because we've got nothing, I mean, we're playing the board, which is in effect a 7 high for us, we're going to have to fold. So we could have give up on the hand, but because of the hand previously when he bet the ace and then folded to a check raise even though he's in position, I think you know, if we give up on them pots all the time when we've got 3 high, I mean, it would be pretty disappointing if he beat us with something like a 9 in his hand. Right, there's one limper here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it to 80. If there'd been 2 limpers, I possibly would have just called in position there and hoped to hit a good flop. But with only one caller, I'm hoping that he folds, or we can play a heads up pot in position. It's also as well at time when you do raise that if he may come over the top, so he may have limped with a big hand. At the higher levels, players will limp and then come over the top representing a big hand when in fact they've got you know, next to nothing. But at this level, a limp under the gun and then they re-raise pre-flop does normally mean a good hand. Not necessarily always aces or kings, but certainly a lot of players used to do it with ace king. It's something I used to do myself in the past, but now I just open every pot. And really what you should be doing at these, when you're playing cash, is not trying to force things. You've got to be very patient when you're playing cash poker. You know, it's even though it's opened under the gun here, I think it would be let's make it a little bit more than 3 times because we have got position. Yeah, it's a very patient game. What you're trying to do is win your opponent's stack, but you're not going to do that by, well, you shouldn't be doing that by getting it in with a pair of 10s or a pair of jacks or You know, what you're doing is trying to play some flops, um, hit some big hands, get some draws, fill up on some draws, hit some sets, and and get your opponent to pay you off. So you can't force it. It is patience. Some days you'll play sessions for 6-7 hours and play great poker, and you might be level. You know, that's not a bad result. Um, so again, we're not going to re-raise because we are out of position. I'm just going to check this back. I mean, ace high, I'm not looking to play a massive pot out of position. I'm just going to check. He'll probably check back here. If he does bet, then okay, so now we're slightly worried, but you know, we can never fold this hand. What I'm going to do here, because the straights come, I'm going to bet 160 here. And what I'm doing is I'm setting the price on the end. And also, when he's got if he's got a better hand, then he may only call because the straights just got there. He may be scared that we've got a set. But also, what he'll do is when we've got him beat, it also acts as like a value bet. Let's see. What did he have? So he had ace 4, which is he's got no kicker, so he couldn't beat anything. So we probably got about the most we would have actually got in that hand. Although if he's willing to bet ace 4 twice, then you know, he may have called a pot-sized bet on the end. But I think we'd made the right play there. I don't normally have the chat on, but I mean, we can get rid of that. And even when you're not in the hand, you need to be observing what players are doing, especially when a hand goes to showdown, because if it does go to showdown, you need to see what kind of hands players were 3-betting pre-flop, maybe even 4-betting. More importantly, what players were calling 3 and 4 bets with, and if the money goes in before the flop, then you need to find out what players are going in with, because normally, say aces and kings. I mean, I would say against a tight player, aces and kings are the only hand you can go all in with, because queens, I mean, are just dominated by everything in their range. A tight player will only be going in with aces, kings, ace, king, and possibly queens. So if you've got pocket queens, then the chance of them having queens are obviously minimal. So you will be dominated by, the best scenario is an ace king hand, in which case you're flipping, but most of the time you will be against aces and kings. Now if you see players who are willing to get it in with ace king, jacks, you know, tens, queens, then you can make a note of that, and you can loosen your range slightly. I wouldn't massively, but I would certainly move queens into your range, and possibly an ace king as well. If you see an absolute maniac who's getting it in with you know, ace queens off and small pairs, then it can even be profitable to call an all in with ace jack upwards, and even hands like I'm going to call this one out of position because it plays well. Yeah, ace jacks um, and hands like eights, nines, tens, but you don't get too many players like that. Or perhaps on on a Friday or Saturday night. You only get a few of the drunk recreational players that just go crazy. But normally, until you see otherwise, I suppose what I'm saying is to treat all three bets as what they are, strength, and especially from a tight player, I would be willing to 4-bet with aces and kings, and I would be tempted to call in position with queens and ace king, and fold hands like jacks and tens, which probably sounds a bit tight, but against these tight players you can never be in good shape. Jack 10 plays well, so I am gonna, even though I'm out of position, I am gonna 3-bet this hand. I don't just want to call with it, I'm gonna actually 3-bet. It's the kind of hand where if he does 4-bet, and it's a small 4-bet, you don't even mind calling, because you're not trying to hit one pair, you're trying to hit 2 pair or a straight or flush draw. Yeah, so going back to ranges, aces and kings you can obviously re-raise whenever. Queens and ace king I would call a tight player's 3-bet in position only. Out of position you can throw them away, throw ace king and queens away. The pot's only small, and unless you hit a set, more often than not the flop will come 3 cards lower than a queen, and you will be you'll think that you're good, and they'll turn over aces or kings a lot of the time. Now, if there's been a lot of a raise and a couple of callers, then of course you may consider just sticking it in with ace, king or queens, because then you're forcing out the marginal hands, and you're really telling you're announcing that you have got a strong hand, and unless they have got the dominating hand of aces or kings, you're going to be probably win the money in the middle, or unless you might get really lucky and get a fish at the table who calls you with like tens or ace queen or jacks. So ace 7 we fold under the gun. You could make a case for raising with it, because that's really under the gun +1, because there's a player sitting out, but concentrating on these aces on the other table. Now, out of position I play aces pretty fast. In position, if I'm against a player who I know likes to bet out at flops, or doesn't like to fold on the flop or fold to a c-bet, and that would be where the heads up display would come in handy, because I would want to see how often how aggressive he is, how often he folds to a c-bet, etc. What I might do is, if I got 3-bet there, I might just flat call in position. But as it happens, I was out of position, and I would play that quite fast and be willing to put the 4th and 5th bets in with aces, looking to play for stacks. We're folding that out of position, and also it doesn't play well at all. Sometimes in the multi-way pots, when there's been a raise and a few callers, rather than squeeze it up, especially if I've got the button, I will call with like suited aces, ace 2, ace 3, ace 4 and ace 5, the ones that you've got the possibility of making the wheel with, which is the low straight, because they do play well. Obviously if an ace comes, you've got to be very cautious. If there's heavy action, which there normally will be, then you're better just to fold, and it is very rare that you fold in the best hand. Now he's raised before and he's raising again. I'm going to raise it up exactly the same. Again, I've got a hand. Now if he puts in the you might think that we're just at it here, so if he does put in the another bet to about 4.5, I may be willing to push that up, but he hasn't. That's good poker by him. He could. We've done it twice from now. He